In this section of the course, I'm going to introduce you to the two main windows that we want to work with in Pro Tools, the Edit window and the Mixer. I'm going to keep this very high level for now. Soon we'll look at everything in more detail. Now, when you work with Pro Tools, you work with a session. A session in Pro Tools is like a document in a word processor. You can only have one session open at a time, although there are ways of copying things between sessions, as we'll see later in this course. As with most applications, you can open the Pro Tools application by double-clicking it or by double-clicking a Pro Tools session file. I like to put Pro Tools in my dock so that I can get to it quickly. If Pro Tools can't find your audio interface, you'll get an error message and you won't be able to start Pro Tools. Remember that your audio interface has to be plugged in and turned on. You will also get an error message if Pro Tools can't find an appropriate software license or your iLock. When you open Pro Tools directly, you're presented with this Quick Start dialog box. This is a nice feature of Pro Tools, but if you would rather not see it, you just uncheck this box at the bottom here, and you won't see it again. You have several choices here. To start with, Pro Tools comes with a bunch of session templates. These allow you to copy the setup of another session. Some of the templates are designed for composing, some are designed for production, and each of them has a series of audio, MIDI, effects, and other settings that may or may not be included in the template. You can, of course, create your own templates, and we'll learn how to do that in a later lesson. If you don't want to work from a template, you can create a blank session. By the way, I'm moving up and down here using Command up and down. If I use just up and down, I scroll within the template window. I can open any one of my recent sessions, or I can open any session from my disk. Okay, let's go ahead and open a session template. I will choose from my music category, drum and bass. I'll set my sample rate down here to 48 kilohertz. If you don't see these session parameters, they can sometimes be hidden with this arrow. And we'll talk about sample rate a little later. And I'm going to click OK. Now I'm copying a template, so Pro Tools wants to know what is the name of my new file. I'm going to call it my drum and bass, and we'll save it on to our disk. And of course, you can use the save dialog to save the session anywhere you want. Now here is the edit window in Pro Tools, and we'll talk about this in a moment. But first, before we can use Pro Tools and before we can hear anything, we have to set up our inputs and outputs. And the way we do that is under the Setup menu, we choose I/O. Now you only have to do this initially when you set up Pro Tools to use your audio interface, but you may need to change it periodically if you make changes to your audio interface or if you get a session from another user. If you look here, I have a 96 I/O, that's my audio interface, and you can see that the output 1-2 is mapped to the first optical pair on my 96 I/O. If I want to add another path, I can click on New Path. Let's call this one, I'll double click it, call it Out 3-4. I will make it stereo. I have lots of different options. And I can use my pencil tool, and there I have a stereo. And of course, I can drag these by selecting them and moving them somewhere else. And you set up inputs the same way. My first two inputs in Pro Tools are going to be coming from my first two optical inputs on my 96 I/O. We'll talk about the I/O setup a lot more in the Configuring and Optimizing Pro Tools course on Mac Pro Video. For now, this is about all you need to know. Just make sure your inputs and outputs are mapped correctly. Click OK. And I'm going to now use my transport here to press play and see if it works. Looks like everything is working.